All right, so last point we were at, we have a game that has textures on the floor, ceiling, walls. We're able to kind of strafe. So strafing, how cool. You can use the mouse. That's really exciting. So we got the basic movement. Now it would be nice if I could actually put other objects into the room. So the first thing I'm going to do is try placing something that actually I can collide with. Now keep in mind that GameMaker does not do three-dimensional collision detection. So I'm actually going to need two different sprites for this to work out. One of them is how much space it takes up in the room. So I'm actually going to create like a little rectangle, which is going to be where it's at in the room. And then the other thing is the actual appearance I'm going to put on the sprite itself. So there's two sprites I'm going to create. First one is, let's see, I think I'm going to use a star that's in the various folder in GameMaker. So this thing is, let's see, where did it go? It's in Pac-Man. There it is. There's the star. So I'm going to use that sprite for what I'm going to see in my three-dimensional game. And now I need to create another sprite. I'm going to call it star in room. I'm actually going to create this from scratch, and it's just going to be a 16 by 16 for now. Just a little square. I'll just fill this in with yellow, I guess. And so this is what I'm actually going to place in the room, and this is the thing I'm actually going to check for collisions with. I could make it smaller or larger, depending on how I want to do it. So the object I'm going to actually create is going to use star in room as how it's placed. So if I go to this is how much of a footprint it has. And if this little circle sprite collides with this yellow sprite here, that's going to be considered the collision. Now, that's not what I'm going to see, though. So in the examples, I think it was page 12 of the tutorial, they're using plant sprites, but it's a similar idea. The effect is that no matter which way you look at this sprite, rather than having it like get more narrow on one side than the other, we're going to have it just constantly facing you. This is called a billboard effect. So the idea is, if your camera is facing this direction, we're going to make sure that the sprite is always just drawn at a right angle to you. So it always looks like it's facing you. It's a little bit of a weird effect, but it makes it so that you can take a two-dimensional sprite and throw it into a three-dimensional game. So the basic idea is, this is very similar to the right angle code we used earlier for strafing. We need to get the texture from that sprite I had and use that for drawing basically a wall that's drawn at a right angle to where the camera is. We're then going to figure out the right angle using sine and cosine, and we're going to draw the wall using those. So I'm going to start with this code, although I'm going to change it a little bit when we get further along. Copy. This is in the draw event of the plant, or the star, by the way. So add event, draw. Code. I love code. It's awesome. Now clearly sprite plant is not going to work, so I need to use star_s. The 0 is which subimage it's using. So if you had an animated sprite, you could actually change it. When we get to the monster, I'll actually give it the animated Pac-Man. These are basically just checking to see which direction is the right angles. And there's two more things I want to add in. So the first thing I want to add in is something that I'm going to call change in x, which they're starting at as being 7 in these two spots. So I'm going to put in dx in place of the 7s here. And that's basically how much it's adding or subtracting to make the sprite wide. It needs to be in all 4 of those spots because it's actually altering both the x and y position in order to make a right angle. Now the other thing I'm going to need to worry about is this thing here. This is the height. So right now it's so at the moment this thing is 14 pixels wide because it's basically double this. The other part I need to know is how high. And right now it's going from 0 to 20. So it's 20 high. So I'm going to call this variable dz, which I'm going to set at 20 for now. And I'm going to replace the 20 with dz. This way I can use this as kind of a generic way of drawing any sprite that's basically this pattern. OK, so that has the drawing code for this guy. Let's see what he looks like. There's the star. It's a little narrow. What does he look like from the other side? He looks exactly the same. Whoa, exactly the same. So that's the billboard effect. Now keep in mind, if your sprite is fairly low resolution, like this 32 by 32, it's going to be pretty highly pixelated, hence the kind of square nature of this sprite. It tries to smooth it a little bit, but you basically need a higher resolution sprite in order to make it look smoother. Now that was a little bit narrow, so I'm going to change this a little bit. So let's make it basically square, so 10 by 20. There we go, a little square. OK, so there's an object. So let me try putting an animated object into a room. So I'm going to create another sprite for what's going to be my monster, which is Pac-Man, because he's scary. So let's do maybe this Pac-Man right. So notice he's animated. So the texture I'm going to have is actually going to be animated as well. So Pac-Man sprite. He's also going to need something that's going to be what he is in the room. Because if I actually just put the Pac-Man sprite in there, he's going to take up a huge chunk of the room when I'm actually colliding with him. I'm going to create another sprite. Pac-Man in room, sprite. I'm going to just edit this and just create a new one, which is 16 by 16. You are filled with red. Done. Almost. Now there's something important that I need to know. There are 4 sub-images to this particular sprite here. If I want the sprite to be animated and use the built-in image index stuff, I actually need to make sure that this sprite, the one in the room, also has 4 sub-images, because it uses the image index of whichever thing is assigned to an object by default. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy and paste this so that there's actually 4 sub-images to this guy. It doesn't really matter what they look like. It's just that I need to be the right size, and I need it to have the same number of sub-images as my animated sprite. So that when I'm saying sub-image 3, even though I'm drawing this Pac-Man sprite, it's referring to this one here. It's kind of a way to trick GameMaker into doing what I want. And I am very tricky. So let's try this Pac-Man thing. Pac-Man object. So he's going to have the Pac-Man in room sprite, but his draw event's going to be different. In fact, it's going to be exactly the same as star. So let me grab the star code and put that in the draw event of Pac-Man. Now, the main difference here is that the image index is actually going to change. So the important thing here is actually this little 0 here in the sprite get texture. By the way, this is how you get sprites to be your textures rather than backgrounds. It's just a change in command where you say sprite get texture. And the difference is you have to say which subimage you're grabbing as well, besides what the name of it is. Otherwise, they're almost exactly the same thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use whatever the default thing of Pac-Man is, which is his image index. That's the built-in variable which contains which animation frame he's on. So by using that by default, as I'm drawing, I'm going to be altering my texture each time, because the draw wall is using that texture. So it'll be the first frame, and then as image index counts up, it'll be the next frame, so on. Hey, Pac-Man, what do you look like in the room? He looks like a star. Maybe I should change it so he uses the Pac-Man sprite instead of the star one. Oops. As awesome as that animated star was. Yeah, that's kind of creepy. When we start them moving, I'm going to be in real trouble.